Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Infernal Intercourse with me and Pastor Brian. This time we're discussing what is evil, because in this show we have a main character who I think people are supposed to think of as evil in our mythology anyway, and religion, and yet in the show he says, I'm not evil, I just like manage the place, right? So I'm a middle manager kind of guy, but I'm not bad myself. But he seems to go back and forth on that because he also then believes he's bad, and then eventually toward the end of season 4 is yelling at Linda, why do I hate myself so much? So certainly he's carrying around a lot of bad opinions about himself, but is he evil? What is evil? So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit here. And Pastor Brian, thoughts on what is evil?
Well, it's really interesting because, as a progressive Christian pastor, just talking about sin is not second nature to me, right? That's what people who pastor the way I pastor are rebelling against, the way that sin has been used to manipulate and abuse people in most religions. But yet there is sin, right? We do miss the mark. And I think maybe the problem is how we look at sin is punished, right? Like, I think when we make sin something that's unforgivable, then people have to, then sin becomes something you can use as a weapon on people. But if sin just becomes a fact that like hurt people, and I'm trying to do my best and I have to take account for it, but I also am not going to beat myself up over it forever, then it gets easier to talk about that. But in my dissertation, we had to talk about what was the difference between sin and evil. And for that, what I came to was evil is when you blame your sins on God. For me, that's what's evil. And so it's interesting in this series, almost everything gets blamed on God. But I mean, I think that's how religion manipulates. They say, oh, I'm racist, so I'm going to say God hates black people. I'm sexist, so I'm going to say God thinks women should obey their men. I'm, homophobic, so I'm going to say, God says this. Well, that's evil if you blame God, because now as somebody who fits that definition, I somehow am a non-person that God hates, and that's a really evil thing to do. And it also gives people permission to persecute me, abuse me, whatever. So if you flip that to this series, it's interesting then to see from the little bitty things they blame on God to the big things they blame on God.
Yeah, so we have Lucifer through the course of his therapy with Linda. I think she's really been trying to get him to confront that, right? That, you want to be your own man, you have to atone for your own badness when you've done bad things. But I always say, well, my dad's manipulating me. My dad is my problem. My dad is always interfering with my life. Maybe you need to grow up and stop saying that and figure out what you're doing and how to cope with your inner pain.
Well, in his case, it's like literally he's failed at adolescence, or he's in adolescence, because that's the job of adolescence, right? To rebel and differentiate ourselves. And he's still blaming daddy. Right?
Yeah, I've been getting. I think about this character is supposed to be eternal, and yet he seems to be like a teenager, which makes me wonder about like the other angels we've discussed earlier are not nice people. They haven't maybe hit adolescence yet. They're just a little like Lord of the Flies 12-year-olds or whatever, because what have they ever faced or endured or had to question? They've just been like, hanging around heaven, navel gazing.
Right. And I would agree. Amenadiel is also adolescent, right? I mean, he's extremely selfish and naive. And even when he's trying to be good, it's really out of like a 10-year-old trying to please their daddy, right? It's not an adult view of it at all.
Yeah, so in season 4 we see him trying to like bond with people badly. And he's
hot. I mean, it should be easy to bond with people.
One would think if you're that beautiful that you might have an easier time, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to be working out for him so well. But now he's going to be a parent, so maybe that'll make him grow up some. I don't know. We'll have to see, because we don't. I did love, just as an aside, the bubble wrap on the ceiling fan. I love it.
I need that. Oh my God. I actually just had a war with my ceiling fan. I was moving a light and stuck it up into my ceiling fan.
Okay, so cool though.
But Well, it's interesting too, the idea when we talk about angels having children, right? Because that does go to what we think is biblical in Genesis there.
After
When
6.
they talk about those giants and was that an evil time, and were they evil creations, and was that a reflection of the angels being evil, or of the people being evil, or a consequence for evil people, in what the people who wrote those chapters down believed anyway. So
Right. So I thought we would talk about the Nephilim some later in
yes,
that
yeah.
episode. But we're trying to get to what evil is. Evil in the show. Do we even know what evil in the show is? Have we really covered that? I mean,
Well, that's what I was thinking as I was talking about how I had to come to grips with the difference between sin and evil. Does the show distinguish, right?
yeah, because if Lucifer's not evil, and
No.
even like Maze, who's a demon, seems not evil. More that she just, she was created to torture people, apparently, and but given the opportunity to become a better person and to step away from Lucifer's shadow and become less servant and more, maybe not a peer, but something like a friend, get her own job, get her own place, that she is also going through this sort of maturation.
Yeah, I was going to say she's also very adolescent, when she refuses to forgive Amenadiel and Linda, right? Like she's very petulant, like an adolescent.
Yeah. So when we get to evil characters, then maybe the demons that show up at the end of season 4 count. I don't know, they want to, they want to kill the baby, but they really want a king back in hell. So can you blame them in a way, right? They've been leaderless. Lucifer just sort of dumped them all. And apparently hell is set up in the show as something that requires an angel to run it, and he hasn't been there. So you'd think they're kind of within their rights to say, hey, we can't run the place. God didn't set it up that way. You have to come back. And when he says no, what are they going to do, right?
Well, and I mean, I think it's like that story of pulling the snake out of the fire, and the snake bites you, but you still pull it out of the fire because it's the snake's nature to bite you. Well, it's the demon's nature to do what a demon does. So is that evil, right? Like, to me, that evil needs intentional impetus. You know what I mean? Like malice, or selfishness or something. And I mean, certainly they could act in those ways, but if you're created to torture and be evil, I don't know. It's interesting.
And of course, we have to kind of tiptoe around that a bit, because people who torture people are not good, right? And yet we want the audience to like Maze, even though we've been told multiple times she was like the best torturer that hell ever had. So you can't really show someone or really depict them as being a really good torturer if you want to bring the audience on board and like them.
Right, although they did, I think, with Maze, though. I mean, I think they've done that. I mean, they've done it with Lucifer, right? I mean, really.
But he insists he never tortured anybody, really.
Yeah.
He just managed it,
He presided over it.
He presided over it, but we don't see that. We don't really see Maze doing it. I guess what I'm saying. The one time that he sends her to torture someone, she just has sex with him, right? Yeah. And she comes back and says, "Hey, I had sex with him. He told me everything you wanted to know." So, we don't really see a lot of torture. It would be harder to empathize with these characters if we'd seen them doing that, I think.
Well, and Maze does give them kind of free will, right? And she just like you said, she went to do what she was built for, and instead she did what she wanted, to kind of rebel. So
yeah, so now we have someone who's a bounty hunter and goes off and does her own thing. And part of that, I think, is they had to do that because Leslie Ann Brandt got pregnant, and she had a kid like between season 2 and season 3 or so. So in season 2, she was, we don't see her showing a pregnancy, right? So they had to like not have her show up in episodes where it would have been obvious that she wasn't not pregnant. So, but then you really think in Hollywood, like by the next season, she's fitting those little bitty skin tight jeans things again. You're like, well, yeah, and she just had a baby.
Yeah,
that's what you do in Hollywood. You get your personal trainer or whatever.
Oh my, that's evil.
Yeah. So, but then for evil, I guess we're back to human characters. Really, it's the human characters that have the choice because really the demons don't have much of a choice. They're created in hell, these soulless things that just are there for an angel to order about, like slaves, really. And but
you'll probably have to refresh me, but early on, what was the whole police setup thing that involved? It's Daniel, right? Her hot ex-husband.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, so remember there was the whole, they thought he was dead and then he got brought back. But there was, did Daniel do bad there? I can't remember.
Yes,
He really did.
Yeah, he was a dirty cop. So he's able to then be a dirty cop later again, right? And he's able to do some things with Maze when she wants to beat some people up. He's on board with that a couple of times.
I think it's more interesting when the humans are the focus, especially human flaws are the focus, because of course that's something we can relate to, as opposed to mythological creatures and whether they're evil, right? Like that's, I mean, certainly we can apply that to ourselves, but it's much more interesting. And I think earlier on they probably did a lot more showing how humans are at least petty, right? Whereas later I feel like we get a lot more about how the heavenly hosts are all petty, although they're petty throughout. But
yeah. Yeah, so we do get, in that sense, I guess Maze is like a seducer of Dan in a way, because when she's like, hey, we could solve this problem if you don't mind murdering someone, or if you don't mind, beating someone up and not telling your bosses that you're a part of this, So Dan does do some things that then aren't good, and it's Maze that kind of leads him down that path, but then he'll back off and say, hey, that wasn't right. I shouldn't have done that. Don't ask me to do that again.
Yeah, I mean, he turns out, he was a real jerk at first, but he turns out to be a real good guy. Well, through most of the episodes there. Yeah.
He goes back to being more jerk than before. Maybe they thought they made him too nice and they needed to kind of backtrack from that.
I think that's it too. And I think maybe they looked at just what I was talking about, where the humans all became kind of like second fiddle to this celestial game going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So any other thoughts on evil in the show?
I think the show needs to do a better job of deciding what it thinks is evil. I do. I think, and maybe it's relative, right? Maybe Lucifer certainly describes relativism early on by saying that's what hell is, right? It's our own, what we think, what we feel guilty for. But, maybe the show, again, if you're focusing on free will, then evil would be betraying your own free will. I don't know.
Okay. Well, thanks again to Pastor Brian for joining me. And thanks for watching. If you liked it, hit like and subscribe and the little notification bell.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yes, ding, ding, ding. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.